We are recording this, so we will be able to share it with other folks who have registered and are not able to attend, or for those that want a little refresher as we get closer to our Advocacy Forum in Hill Day. Looks like we have some chat. Okay, and hello to those that are joining. If you want to put where you're from, that would be most appreciated. And we really do look forward to today's conversation and, of course, seeing you in person next month. Okay, and we also want to be mindful of everyone's time. So it's 3:02 on the Eastern side. Naomi and Sam, would you think we should get started? Okay, I'm getting acknowledgements. So good afternoon or good day to all who are joining us today for the 2024 Advocacy Forum in Capitol Hill Day briefing to prepare you all for next month. My name is Barbara Savarino. I'm the Senior Director of Public Policy at United Way Worldwide, and I'm joined by my amazing colleagues and also our consultants who will be joining and sharing information with you all. Today, this webinar will assist you as you prepare for next month's sold out, which is awesome, Advocacy Forum. And we're going to talk a little bit more about, we're going to have an agenda that will walk through what we're going to be doing today, which would be a quick summary of what you can expect and how you should prepare for the Advocacy Forum. Then we'll do a bit of a conversation about our federal priorities or asks. And then we're also going to touch on the meeting schedules and also the best way to prepare for a meeting and answer any questions that may come. The public policy team here at United Way Worldwide, we lead the federal policy and advocacy efforts, and we support our network in their efforts to lift their voice, their power, and their impact collectively of over 900 United Ways throughout the country to advance our efforts and build a thriving community. Our priority areas include congressional engagement, executive branch engagement, strategic coalition engagement, and also network support. And today's briefing, as well as the Advocacy Forum, are some of the ways that we work together to support our efforts. We also have monthly briefings that we do on a variety of topics. Our weekly newsletter, the Public Policy Newsletter, is also a resource. We have Communities of Practice, which is another opportunity to share information on our various topics, but do a deeper dive and learn from your colleagues. And that effort is led by Naomi Lett. And then we also do provide some state policy efforts and resources, which is a newer offering this year. And again, that is led by Naomi Lett. So I am going to now turn over so we can get the agenda started. And it looks like, I cannot believe this, that my screen is not advancing, which happens sometimes. Naomi, I don't know if you can advance the slide. I'm sorry, momentarily while we do this. Let me just see if I can do it this way. Naomi, I just gave you slide. There you go. Here we go. We just did the agenda, which I covered. Thank you so much for advancing that, Naomi. Okay, so I think we have two people. So here are our key speakers today. I'm going to be turning over our briefing to Naomi Lett, and she's going to walk through the front end about what you need to know about the upcoming Advocacy Forum in Hill Day. I will talk a bit about our federal priorities and asks. And then Sam Goodstein, who is our consultant who supports our efforts from Venn Strategies, will also provide some guidance on meetings, how to get them scheduled, and best examples and cases. Okay, so Naomi, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Barbara. I'm so excited to have you all here with us today and that we're able to go over the policy priorities for this year. Just on the front end, we like to go over the goals for the forum this year. So there's the network-wide goals, and then there's also the goals that we have for you all as member United Ways. and how you'll be able to advance your policy acumen and your relationships on Capitol Hill. So for the Advocacy Forum and Partnership Summit, we want to make sure that you're able to deepen your issue knowledge. We have a large focus on policy as revenue diversification this year and how to build partnerships that can bring investment through your United Way into your community. So making sure that we're deepening your knowledge in those areas. Honing your advocacy skills, right? So we'll be taking a look at messaging, navigating partisanship, several topics that will help you really hone your skills in the area of working with policymakers, whether it be on the federal level or state level. We want to make sure that you are able to network with your colleagues from around the country. This is a hugely valuable part of the Advocacy Forum. We know for you all to connect with other people who are endeavoring in the same way that you are to advance your community through policy work. And we want to make sure that from our position in Washington, D.C., we're able to help you access executive branch partnerships and engagement offerings. Those can be hugely beneficial to communities, and you'll see some examples of that as we go through the sessions for the day. On Capitol Hill Day, we want to help you build and strengthen the relationships with federal lawmakers. Many of you already have strong relationships there, so this is a way to really demonstrate how much federal policy is a priority to you. Many of you are traveling from long distances, and your efforts to come to Washington, D.C., to come to Capitol Hill are a big part of letting your lawmakers know that, hey, we're paying attention. Hey, we have priorities, and it matters enough for me to come all the way here to Washington, D.C. So making sure that we're helping you position your United Way as an expert and resource, right? Because a big part of policymaking is being an educator and an influencer. So we want to make sure that as we're going through all of the sessions and the time that we have together, that we are enabling you in that way. And last but not least, make the collective asks, which my colleague Barbara will go over today. These are issues that are part of our policy priorities that were cultivated out of the impact survey and identified as high priority from the network. Okay, so before coming to the forum, we would like each of you all to reach out and request Hill meetings. A request is always more effective coming from a constituent, right? So we have a team here. If you need assistance or help, we have contact information for the schedulers, but you are more likely to get a yes if the request comes from you directly. So we encourage all of you who are attending to go ahead and reach out to those offices and make sure you are able to make the request. And if you need any help from us, we are there to support you. But again, you are more likely to get a yes, more likely to get time with either lead staff or directly with your member of Congress if you make the ask. Submitting your meeting schedule, that's really important so that we can make sure that one, we're supporting you all together, and two, we can help with follow-up or coordination with the meetings that you do have. Prepare and do your homework. Local data on any given issue is the key to really getting lawmaker buy-in, right? And doing member research. So if you understand that they care deeply about veterans issues or senior citizens, when you're talking about the HELP Act, you'll be able to lean in on things that you know are important to them, anything that they're working on. So your ability to do member research and understand who you're meeting with and what their priorities are is a big part of the most important goal of the Advocacy Forum and Capitol Hill Day, which is building a strong relationship that will endure. So prepare and amplify messages. Anything that you can do to lift up the conversations that you have. There's so many media outlets that are available now to individuals, whether that's a blog, you can use a press release, the traditional press release, an op-ed, and of course, social media. Many of you, if you haven't already gotten a list of other people who are attending from your state, please let us know, put it in the chat, and we'll make sure that you have the list of folks who are also coming. And make sure to coordinate if you have a state association in your area. Coordinating with them is always helpful, especially if they're leading policy in your state. Last but not least, the toolkit leave behinds and pre-reads will be available and shared prior to the forum. So making sure that you know what's on those pre-reads, that you're able to bridge that to your local information is very important and helpful. Okay. Last but not least, we have the scheduled forum. So this is a brief overview of what we're doing. Everyone should have access to the full schedule on the event registration. But on Tuesday, July 23rd, registration will open at 2 p.m. Our event kicks off, our first session kicks off at 3 p.m. and we'll have two sessions between 3 and 4:30. And at 4:30 p.m. we'll have the reception where Angela Williams will join us. Of course, she is a big proponent of policy, understands the impact and power that it has to advance communities, and is really excited to join us this year at the reception. And then on Wednesday, registration will open at 8 a.m. and we will kick off at 8:30 a.m. So we'll have two sessions that we will be looking at policy as revenue diversification, both from state appropriations and then again from the government partnerships perspective. And then we have the Partnership Summit. Those of you who attended last year will know we'll go to the Department of Commerce and hear from federal agencies about opportunities for partnerships with government, grants and programs that are available for public-private partnership, and find ways that you can connect. So we have a variety of agencies that will be there with us, from the Department of Education to the National Transportation Agency. So I think there's a variety of ways that you can connect for meaningful change in your community. And then last but not least, on Thursday, July 25th, we will all head to Capitol Hill bright and early in the morning and make our way over. So if you are making appointments, we recommend that you make them at 10 a.m. or later. If you want to Uber over, if your member or their staffer can only meet earlier in the morning, you can certainly take a public transportation or a ride share or a taxi to the Capitol. It's pretty easy to do, and make your way over there earlier if you need to. So Barbara, is there anything else that I missed on this? Anything else we need to cover before I hand it back to you?
No, thank you so much, Naomi. I did see there was a question, and I appreciate everyone putting questions in the chat, which I'm monitoring. There was a question about the hotels, and I was just wondering if there's any guidance or recommendation on that. It seems that because we're sold out, it seems like we're at capacity for the Sheraton.
Yes. So we had a room block with a limited number of rooms. That was at a discounted rate. I believe the Sheraton still has rooms available. They are just not at the block rate. So you can still make a reservation at the Sheraton. The AKA Hotel is the nearest, and then there is a Hilton nearby as well. So we'll make sure, I'll speak with the events team and we'll I'll make note to do a follow-up email for attendees on the hotel options. But unfortunately, the hotel block has been filled at this point, and they won't allow us any more rooms in the reservation. So you'll have to just make a regular reservation from Expedia or wherever else.
Okay, and then Sam, I'm going to direct this question to you because I've received it and addressed it, but I just think it's probably helpful for everyone to hear. Is that some people are concerned because Thursdays is typically when members of Congress might leave to go back to the district. And there's questions about like, will the meetings be canceled or any guidance you can have? I just want to make sure I I addressed it. Is there a risk of cancellation for afternoon scheduled meetings?
I mean, the short answer is there's always a risk of cancellation anytime these meetings happen, just because of votes, because of committee hearings. I mean, there's always a risk. Most members do fly out Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. If they're not available, then, my own personal view, and I spent 17 years as a Senate staffer, so maybe I'm biased, but I think meeting with the staff can be every bit as important, if not more so, than actually meeting with the member. So I think it'll be fine. I mean, yeah, the risk is slightly higher with Thursday afternoon, but the risk is really high on Wednesdays because those are usually the busiest days. So as long as you get in to meet with the staff, I think that's good. But yes, there's definitely risk.
Okay, all right, thank you. So we are going to, and I just want to say there was also a question about the recording and the slides, and we are definitely going to be sharing the PowerPoint as well as the recording with all registrants. So I just want to make sure we should have shared that at the beginning of it. Okay. Okay, so now, Naomi, I was wondering, could you advance it because my computer is deciding it's taking a break. Okay, so here we go. So this page is just like the one-pager, high level, what our federal priorities and asks are for your meetings. And as Naomi shared, we wanted to make sure you had this information, and that way you can also see about collecting any data, any stories or information to include with the conversation that you're having about these three programs. For many in the network, you have been involved in these advocacy efforts with us this past year or over many years, especially with regards to SNAP and the Farm Bill, and also the credit work. Many in the network have been involved in that as well. The 211 HELP Act is a newer advocacy effort for us. The HELP Act has been introduced. The most recent one was 2 years? Well, last year. Sorry, I'm blurring now, but it is called the Human Services Emergency Logistics Program, and that will provide support to allow 211 to be at the best capacity it can be and be a service for those in our community. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, and also what resources we'll provide for you. Then we also have, with the Farm Bill being in the news up for reauthorization, United Way continues to be advocating to preserve and protect the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, which is also known sometimes as food stamps. And then we also are going to be working on enhancing the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit. So thank you, I believe, for advancing the slide, Naomi. And the first, okay, here we go. So when you are meeting with your office or their staff, we are asking them to co-sponsor the Human Services Emergency Logistics Plan, otherwise known as HELP, Act of 2021. There is some information here, but for those that might not know, 211, I know it might be strange, but 211, real quick, is an FCC designated number to connect people to information and referral services for health and human services. 211 specialists are trained to identify and address root causes of a client's problem and connect them to available resources to meet their need. And we are working at United Way worldwide, along with the 211 network, to increase and get federal funding to support 211. At this time, 211 does not receive federal funding, except for those in the network who might have received an earmark from their member of Congress. So the HELP Act right now is bipartisan, so it has Republican and Democratic support, and there's bicameral, meaning there is a bill in the Senate and a bill in the House. And this slide shares a little bit about what the HELP Act would do. And then what we will provide is a list of the current co-sponsors. So you can see if your member of Congress has signed on as a co-sponsor, And if they haven't, you can ask them to. And if they have, you can thank them for joining and being part of the support for 211. Sam, is there anything you think that I might have missed about the HELP Act that we should share?
No, I think that's it. It's always great to stress that it's bipartisan and bicameral. So you have Democrats and Republicans on the bill in both the House and the Senate. But yeah, I think that's perfect.
And what I will say is that when you arrive for your packet, there will be the 211 state data, as well as the list of co-sponsors, and in a one-page pre-read or leave behind that will be shared with you prior, but that will all be included to help you with your meetings and your conversation. So I want to make sure that we share that with you ahead of time. Okay,
the only other thing I would add is and you all know this, you've done plenty of meetings, but to the extent that you can sort of localize the story, I think that's always helpful for staff, because they're dealing with, hundreds of meetings where people come in and just sort of spit out policy things to them. But if you can tie it to their communities, that will sort of make them listen more and help them remember it more. So it's not just another, checklist of policy priorities.
And I think also, Sam, thanks for that. And then also thinking about how your United Way and the community uses or supports 211, and then connecting it, especially if there's any disasters. This is the time of year where we see more natural disasters, unfortunately, and how 211 rises to that situation, not just in that moment, but then afterwards as well. So if you have that, that's what I have found has been very compelling and of interest to staffers and to the members of Congress, as well as for those that serve their constituents. Okay.
Sorry, just one other thing that just popped into my head. I think one way to frame it to staffers is not only is this bipartisan, but it's truly nonpartisan. Because a 211 network, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican, you're calling for help. So I think hearing that is maybe a breath of fresh air for a lot of these staffers and even members who are trapped in these never-ending partisan wars that, can just grind you down. Sorry, I'm reflecting a little bit about my many long years there, but I do think that, stressing the community effect and the bipartisan, nonpartisan nature of it is helpful.
Okay. So Naomi, if you could advance the slide, I appreciate that. Thank you. So the next policy priority or ask is United Way and many other national organizations continue to advocate for the enhancement or the improvement to the child tax credit and the federal earned income tax credit. We have been doing this work for several years, and the improvements to the earned income tax credit and the child tax credit, most recently in 2021, supported families and people with low to moderate incomes. It improved financial stability and addressed inequities to economic mobility. And by doing so, we can all build and support our community and make it more thriving. And so we are continuing our efforts in this space. I have put a little bit more about the earned income tax credit because a lot of time and I guess more of the communications has been on the child tax credit, but the earned income tax credit also is such a valuable and critical piece in moving people forward. And so we continue to work on that and advocate for it and bring it up. I know many in the United Way Network have examples and stories. So if you do that, if you've worked on VITA and you've seen the impact of volunteer income tax assistance program, and you've helped people file their taxes and you know the impact that it has and what it does, not just for the individual, but also the effect it has in your community and in the local economy, those are all good stories to share. And I will provide the state data sheets and data points on both what this would mean for your state. I can't drill down at this point probably to the local level, but we are committed to make sure you have those resources as you move into your meetings. I will say, Sam, is there anything you want to share about one of my favorite topics, the credits?
No, I think that's nothing for me.
Okay, and if anyone has any questions, either now or moving forward, please don't hesitate to contact us. Okay, so Naomi, do you want to advance to the next slide? I really appreciate your help. So the final priority that we're recommending or requesting that you include in your meetings deals with the Farm Bill reauthorization. And United Way and many others in the community are advocating to preserve and strengthen the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So I put a little bit of information about the Farm Bill, but the Farm Bill is the centerpiece for federal legislation for food and farming. It impacts access to nutritious food for Americans who are facing hunger. The Farm Bill is reauthorized usually every 5 years. And what the Farm Bill can do is, and what we're asking Congress to do, is to strengthen and protect the program from cuts or other harmful changes, to make sure that we help seniors, families, children, and active military members and others, have what they need to move forward, and again, focus and be thriving in our thriving communities. So that is where we are with the Farm Bill. I know that there's different bills and there's different conversations going on, but both the Farm Bill and possibly the child tax credit and earned income tax credit might be more discussed, or you might see more in the news when we're doing our advocacy forum in Hill Day. Sam, is there anything you want to share about the Farm Bill or SNAP, or just some thoughts you might have on that?
Yeah, just briefly, the Farm Bill has really gotten bogged down in the partisan battles between the House and the Senate. The Republicans in the House have very specific ideas about what they want to do. Senate Democrats are not going for some of the cuts that they're proposing. So, this one is very different than 211 and the HELP Act, in that, the members or the staff that you're meeting might be operating in a space where they do have pretty hardened views about, everyone will agree that they should pass a Farm Bill because it needs to be done. But this thing has gotten really bogged down. So just a flag that I think it's important to stress the priorities. And again, if you can, create a local connection, that's useful too. But on this one, I think attitudes are going to be pretty hardened.
And I know, and historically, the Farm Bill and the other efforts that we're in, have had bipartisan support. And we're hoping that this is part of the conversation right now, even though, Sam, I do know that it's much more hardened right now.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the frustrating things about this time in general, is that the Farm Bill for decades and decades has really been a bipartisan thing. So, yeah.
And one thing I'm just going to deviate quickly is that for those that are coming to our advocacy forum in Hill Day, one of our sessions is going to be focused on discussing the polarization and some messaging. And so that will certainly help us in our meetings and conversations. It just might give you a little refresh or a new way to think about some of the conversations that we will be having as we move forward. Just wanted to give a little shout out for that. I'm going to try to advance. Naomi, would you like to advance the slide? Thank you. Okay, so Sam, now I'm going to turn this over to Sam, who has worked on Congress on the Hill, and has been on the other side, but has been also very helpful with United Way in our work in scheduling meetings. And he's going to talk a little bit about some best practices on scheduling a meeting, and also a sample meeting. And then we also have some resources. So Sam, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure, thank you. And before I start, I always need to note that my mom worked for the United Way in Flint, Michigan for 20 years. So this is a labor of love for me, and very, very excited to be with you all. A lot of this stuff you already know, so I'll move through some of these slides pretty quickly. But You want to put the call into your member's office, obviously the phone number on the website. I always recommend trying to get a hold of the scheduler if you can. The most important thing is to let them know that you're a constituent. That, you know, if you're not, especially during this busy time, they're just going to put you in the blow them off pile. So, I mean, that's pretty obvious stuff. Always best to recommend a meeting with a member, but as we discussed before, there's really nothing wrong with meeting with staff. I assume a lot of you have personal connections to the members themselves, so that obviously changes the dynamic a bit. So we can go to the next one.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you. Yeah. So 3 to 5 weeks is now. So you know, I would get those in. The requests, obviously, the who, what, when, where, and why. This, you know, you'll get these slides, so you'll see the House format, the Senate format. Keeping the email brief is important. Again, these offices are getting in the Senate easily, you know, 100 requests a day, probably dozens in the House every single day. So, you know, one thing I always tell people, don't be shy about bugging people if you don't hear back. I mean, I know some schedulers that rely on constituents to email them 2 or 3 times, because they just have so much coming in. So please don't be shy. If you know, they all have thick skins, and if you write a message requesting a meeting and don't hear back in a week, by all means, forward your message right back to them again. So next slide, please. We discussed this as well. Focusing on local issues, local connections is so important. The less that it feels like you are reading talking points that were pre-prepared, the better. Usually you get about 10 to 20 minutes, particularly in the House. Some of these offices are really small and crowded. It's honestly not uncommon, especially in the House, for meetings to get moved to the hallway, which always feels a little awkward to me, but it is what it is. I mean, I've seen members do meetings in the hallway because their office is being used by somebody else. So it's, you just kind of have to roll with it. You know, again, you might have a meeting scheduled with the member, but you know, Wednesdays and Thursdays are just super busy. Wednesday and Thursday morning are when committees usually meet. And you all know how it works. I mean, a member could have a meeting scheduled for 10:30 and think they don't have to be at the committee room until 11. And then someone from the committee calls and says, you got to get your boss over here right now because X, Y, or Z. And then, you know, that the member's gone and you're with the staff. But again, I think that's fine. Pictures are great. Take pictures. Members love, I mean, United Way, you know, the brand is so incredibly bipartisan. I've just never met an office, a member, a staffer who doesn't love United Way. So taking photos, social media, all that kind of stuff is always fantastic and welcomed by the offices that you're meeting with. I don't need to tell you all about professional dress, and obviously you will go through security when you go through the buildings. So I think my last slide.
Yes.
Yeah. Just sort of walking through, again, a lot of this stuff. I assume most of you have done many meetings like this, so you know the drill. Again, it's like really with the HELP Act, I really encourage you to focus on the impact that the 2-in-1 network has in your communities. You can talk about the key issues. You can talk about how the bill is bipartisan. You know, on the tax credits and the farm bill, also bringing in local issues is helpful, but I think it's particularly useful and applicable when it comes to the HELP Act. One last thing, you know, I do not think any of you should be shy about asking for the member to co-sponsor the HELP Act or to support your position on any other issue. My view about sort of lobbying on these things is everybody else is being direct, so we're at a disadvantage if we're not being direct. You know, I mean, not obviously in a respectful and polite way, but stressing how important it is to you that office co-sponsors the HELP Act and supports us on our other issues. I think that directness is helpful. And then last, offering to be a resource. You know, on the tax credits in the Farm Bill, they will have more background just because they've been floating around longer, and there are probably staffers in those offices who are sort of a big part of their portfolio is those bills. But with something like the HELP Act, they probably will need more background. So offering to be a resource, sharing your contact info, following up is great.
And then I think also afterwards, doing a follow-up thank you is also pretty helpful. Like maybe just also highlighting any points that you wanted to reinforce, like after you go back to your office, when you're back in your local United Way, and then also offering, maybe inviting them to come to your site, or maybe do something to learn more about a community partner or 211. I know 211s operate in different ways. Some of them are more virtual, but if there's just different ways that you can connect with them and this is all about the relationship. And again, like Sam said, being a resource and just maybe doing it not just in July, but ongoing, as we know you all do with all of the members in your community. Okay. And thank you, Elizabeth. I see taking district state 211 data can be very helpful. Yes, I think sometimes people are very surprised because they don't think certain things are in their community or those are needs. So it's always helpful to share that as well, and then see how you use that to make decisions on your impact work or other investments. Okay, and then we do have a map because for those that maybe aren't familiar, there's the buildings that are in the Senate are on one side and the buildings in the House are on the other. And Sam, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about like logistics. Like I think from one side to the other, like I know I walk fast, but I think you should, how much time should you allocate to get from one side to the other and things like that? And you can go underground. I just thought it might be helpful for people to get a better feel for that.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a typical July day in DC, which means, like 99 degrees, 99% humidity, I prefer going underground if, through the Capitol complex or however you can get through. And then you don't have to go through security twice. It's a little labyrinthine, if that's the right word down there, but you can always ask the staffers that you're with to point you in the right direction or ask the Capitol Police. But yeah, if it's a nice day, it's fine to walk outdoors. It's about 10 minutes from one side of the Capitol to the other. You just have to be mindful that the security lines can be, I would plan on adding another 10 or 15 minutes to get through security if you're gonna go outside.
Yeah, and if you're tight on time, do you think, Sam, you can ask maybe the staffer in the in the office that you're in to help you, like maybe is that an option, like just to kind of try to get through stuff quicker, or just
or even if the staffer can't, they should definitely have an intern that can at least move you in the right direction. Thanks. I meant the intern like the staffer might not be able to do it. But if it's a nice day, I mean, it's a beautiful walk outside. If you've got an hour between meetings and it's a nice day, I would go outside. But
on the House side and on the Senate side, if you're in one building, you can just go through, like you don't have to exit and go back through security if you're meeting on the House side with several members. It's only when you like have a House meeting and then you go to the Senate side and then you have to go back. But underground, you can get through. You can also go shopping and like there's cafeterias and things like that.
Oh yeah, sorry, I should have been more clear. Good point. If you're like, there's no reason to leave any House office building if you're going from one House meeting to another. So if you have a meeting in the Cannon building and then another one in the Rayburn building, do not leave the building and then go back in. Just go underground. I was talking more about if you're
Yeah.
going from the House to the Senate, but yes, if you're staying on one side, once you're in, unless you have a really long break, I would just stay in.
Thanks for that, Sam. And again, it really depends. But what I will say is if you get lost, they're very friendly. The Capitol Police will help direct you, and they do have maps. So make sure of that. So that's all good news. Okay, I think we're good on that. And so now we're just going to, and this map will also be included in your folder. So you have it for that day, as well as I'm sure on your phone, you can navigate it as well. Okay, so yes.
Barbara, I wanted to mention as well that during Capitol Hill Day, United Way Worldwide staff will be located in the cafeterias on both the House side and the Senate side.
And we'll make sure we include that information of where it is. So that way, if you have questions or you want to, you have a break, like Sam said, between your meetings, because sometimes we do, you can definitely hang out with your United Way friends. And we look forward to it, or answer any questions or strategize on different ways to advance our work together. Okay, so here are some reminders. We've talked about scheduling the meetings with legislators and their offices, ideally in coordination with your state leads. And if you have questions, like Naomi said, about who is your state lead, or if there's anyone else from your state coming, contact us. We're happy to make the connection and facilitate that conversation. If you can submit your meeting schedule to United Way, that will be really helpful. We can also look at it and see if there's any other information that might be helpful for you, or also, again, just trying to connect folks. Maybe if you have, that maybe you aren't aware of that you're meeting or you've made that request. So we just want to make this the best experience for you, and then also the opportunity for our network to leverage the opportunity with the members of Congress and their staff. The public policy team is here to help. We have listed all of our emails, which is the best way to reach us. There also is an advocacy forum website that has information about the conference overall, not just the Hill Day, but it's just everything: hotels, logistics, some frequently asked questions. But if you have other questions that maybe are not there, definitely let Naomi, Jordan, or I know, and we can follow up with you for sure and address it. Because if you have that question, probably somebody else does, but they've just not asked it. And again, we want this to be the best experience it can be for you all. We've all participated in different interactions with members of Congress and their staff, and it's such a great opportunity to lift up our network and also advance the work we're doing and support our community. So it's a great opportunity. Naomi, if you can just do the next slide. These are the resources, and this is the most important, along with everything else that we've shared. We have the website, which is available now. The Know Before You Go webinar, which was held previously, that's already recorded and shared. We will be sharing this recording and the PowerPoint and resources. Coming soon, there will be the federal priority pre-reads or leave behinds for your meetings. And that will have a little bit more information than what was shared on the slides, along with some state data, etc. We also will have a meeting schedule link for you to share your meetings. And also, if you need support with scheduling, we have that contact information. The resource guide. This is, again, like just an overview of the advocacy forum. It will include sample tweets that you might want to use, some other information, and it's just another resource for you. So that, I think, is all we have right now. I think there is a question. Where is the list of attendees accessed? Naomi, do we have that list that is publicly shared, or will that be included? And if not, we can follow up offline. I'm just not sure.
Yeah, that information will be available on the website and through the event portal. So you'll be able to see who else is coming from other states when you come to the forum. It's not readily available yet, but it will be when you come to the forum and afterwards.
Do you want to share how many states we have representing and how many people, Naomi?
Yes, we are so excited about this. We have 38 states represented. That is a record for the Advocacy Forum. We also have 150 people attending, which is the maximum number of people we can accommodate in the Mary Gates Learning Center. So we are completely booked. The event is completely booked. So we are going to have a huge presence on Capitol Hill. We are going to have a great day there. And with so many of you coming and so many states represented, it's guaranteed to be a great day.
Indeed. I'm just looking to see if there's any last questions, comments. I want to thank you all for joining us today, but also for making the time and joining us next month. It is going to be so great to meet you, to learn about your communities, or get caught up on what's going on, and seeing again, this is the starting point or a retouch for how we can work together to move our work forward. Naomi,
Barbara,
or yes.
we actually do have a couple of questions.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not see that.
So,
sorry, guys.
We have a question from Mike that says, how much funding is being requested for the HELP Act, or through the HELP Act, rather?
Okay. All right. Sam, do you have that off the top of your head?
I believe it's 550 million total, and that is between 988 and 211.
It's like Sam.
That is correct. I'm looking at the bill right now. But the thing that I would stress is this is an authorization bill, and you all know this, but Congress authorizes on the one hand and then has the Appropriations Committee that funds programs on the other. So the bill, even if passed, would only authorize the funding, and then the Appropriations Committee would go back and fund it at whichever level they decide. I mean, we would hope that they would decide to fully fund it. When you hear the programs are fully funded, that means that it's funded up to the level that Congress authorized, but that is not always the case. So it's $550 million for each of the next 2 fiscal years. So 350 million of that would be for 211, 200 million for 988. Yeah, but when staffers say that this bill costs money, it does and it doesn't. Even if it's passed, Congress would have to go back and actually appropriate funds for it. I'm not sure if that answered.
Yeah, thank you for that
Thank
clarification.
you.
Yeah, so authorizing funding doesn't equate to funding, but the request is 550 million with 350 million that would go towards 211. But it would have to be funded at that level as well. Okay, the next question was from Bobby in Michigan. And I have actually answered this question many times, Bobby. So if it's all right, I'll volunteer on this and then first, and then pass it over to my colleague. So it says, does UWW have resources to counter the message that the EITC has a lot of fraud returns? So what Bobby, what I've done when that question has come up, because every year that I would come and talk about the earned income tax credit, fraud would come up. So we would speak first about the VITA program, right? So I'm not necessarily trying to argue the point of whether or not what the levels of fraud were, or which is often a rebuttal for not supporting it, right? So we would shift over to the 98% accuracy rate that we have with VITA. That's why VITA is so important and goes hand in hand with the earned income tax credit. So if you find that question comes up, I think you can deflect and redirect to the role that the voluntary income tax assistance program takes, and how you make sure that the families that are helped and supported by EITC also have competent and great tax preparers working on their behalf. And I see Phil put something on in the chat, and it's always great help. Thank you, Phil. We always a lot of expertise. So I pass it over to Barbara and Sam to see if they had any additional input on the EITC fraud returns. Any other comments you want to make on that?
I will make sure that what we share has a point about that. It has come up times, but I think that what Phil shared is interesting. I'll look at that. It's been a little bit of time, but we're not for that, obviously, but we also understand, like, well, we'll share a message point about it. We can do there.
Thank
And
you.
if you have additional questions, please don't hesitate.
Okay, and then there was, I think, our friend Jamie was asking about information for the schedulers. So we may want to put the link that
Yes,
has the schedule contact information in the chat. I don't know if it's already been put in there.
it has not, but I will send it as a follow-up with this recording.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then Daniel from California asked about the impact of the new IRS program. How do they talk about the impact of the new IRS program, or IRS tool rather, and its impact on VITA?
So we can definitely have a point about that, but for United Way, this past tax filing season, we saw Direct File, which I believe is the IRS tool you're talking about, or resource, as a complement, because we're looking at all the ways that individuals to make it as easy as possible to file their taxes. So some people can do the Direct File, it's an easy way to do it. Some people want to do the VITA, go in and make an appointment. So just meeting people where they are at this point, with the result of having people be able to do it as easy and also keep as much of their money as possible. I'll make a point though for you so you have that as well.
Great. Okay, I think that covers all the questions in the chat. Did anybody else have anything from that you'd like to include in the Q&A? All right, Barbara, I think I'm going to pass it back over to you then to.
Okay. Well, I want to thank Naomi and Sam and everyone else for joining us today. Really looking forward, like I said, to seeing you all in person next month. And moving forward, as we get closer to the advocacy forum, if you have questions, something comes up, please don't hesitate to contact us. We really are excited for this amazing event, and thank you all for coming today.